ancient Egyptians worshipped gods like Anubis and Osiris. But what if these gods were just extraterrestrials? It's an interesting concept that I've done a lot of research about over the years, and I think there's a lot of evidence to support this theory. Today, I'm going to try to convince you to open your minds to the possibility that humans in the past may have been visited by aliens. We'll look at evidence from the past, evidence from the future, and evidence that is still alive and thriving today. But first, let's start by defining the Ancient Astronaut Hypothesis. The Ancient Astronaut Hypothesis states that human beings on this planet have been visited by extraterrestrials in the past. And these extraterrestrials were flesh and blood, which is key. They weren't supernatural beings or gods. They were people, just like you and me, but more technologically advanced. To see how this would be possible, let's start by defining cargo cults. A cargo cult behavior occurs when a primitive society meets a more technologically advanced society and begins to worship that society as deities. Cargo cults still exist all over the world today. But the most prominent example is during the World War II Pacific island hopping campaign that the US orchestrated upon Japan to try to get closer to the Japanese mainland. They hopped from island to island, taking over these islands, and on their way, they met the natives of the islands. These are very primitive people. One of these islands was Tana Island. They helped the natives, they gave them gifts and food like canned corned beef, and they taught them how to do new stuff. But the war eventually ended, and the American troops had to return to the USA. But very recently, people returned to this island, and this is what they found. This is an article from Atlas Obscura about cargo cults of Tana. The people of the island had begun to worship a man named John Frum as a god. This is said to have originated when an American soldier during World War II identified himself as John from America. And they would make sculptures and paintings of this man, and every year in February they would have a day called John Frum Day, where they would wear jeans, paint USA on their chests, and they would build sculptures of World War II era airplanes out of grass. This is from a BBC News article. BBC News from the UK went there recently and talked to the village chief, who said, "John is our god. One day he will come back." These people hoped and prayed that John Frum would eventually return, bringing them more cargo. And this is where the term cargo cult comes from. This is another cargo cult in the area called the Prince Philip movement that originated when Prince Philip went to visit the same Pacific Islands in the 1950s and brought them gifts. And here you can see the tribesmen holding their framed pictures of Prince Philip. They believe Prince Philip is a pale-skinned mountain spirit who will one day return to bring them more cargo. Let's shift our focus from the present to the future. Humanity loves exploration. We will eventually leave Earth and begin to explore deep space. And when we do, we won't use rockets like we see here. We will instead use generation starships. These starships are humongous and circular, and they spin around really fast so that they push everything toward the outer walls to create artificial gravity. This allows humans to live on these spaceships for a long time and reproduce. A university in the UK did some math on this, and they found that after about 30,000 years, people will have reproduced and built enough ships just from the one ship that there will be more ships in the sky than there are stars in the galaxy. And so humanity will spread out to the far reaches of space, colonizing and visiting every planet they can. And we will eventually find intelligent life on one of these planets. This life may be intelligent, but may also be technologically primitive. So what will we do when we find them? We'll probably help them. We'll give them food and gifts. We'll teach them how to do new stuff. We'll help them build things, probably out of stone, because it lasts a long time, and it's very resistant to erosion. But what happens when we eventually leave to find new planets? Will these people write about how they were visited by the sky people? Will they build sculptures of us in our astronaut suits? Probably so. They will exhibit the same cargo cult behavior as we have talked about with the John Frum cult. And as this cargo cult behavior will occur in our future and is currently occurring in our present, isn't also very likely that it has occurred in humanity's past. This is a sculpture that the John Frum cult made to honor the man John Frum. Looks like a pretty old picture, but it's a World War II era airplane made of straw. But let's go back even further. This is the temple of Seti I in the ancient Egyptian city of Abydos. London's Global University dates it to about 3000 BC, so it's about 5,000 years old. And on the ceiling of this temple are etchings of what those people call vimanas, which translates roughly to chariots of the gods. I believe some more recent Indian languages just translate it to aircraft. But don't some of these images look a bit ahead of their time? Specifically, these. They look very much like a helicopter, a submarine, and a blimp. Some more examples. This is a painting above an altar in a monastery in Yugoslavia that dates to around 1350. It's called the Crucifixion. It looks like a man in some sort of spacecraft. This is a carving that was found in Kyiv, Ukraine. It's about 6,000 years old. It looks a lot like a man in a modern-day astronaut suit. And here are some more astronaut artifact examples that look pretty old. So, we've looked at cargo cults that exist in the present, established that cargo cult behavior will continue in the future when humanity expands beyond our own galaxy. And we've also looked at evidence from thousands of years in the past that suggest that ancient humans had contact with advanced civilizations. I hope that I've convinced you to keep an open mind to the possibility that humans have been visited by aliens in the past. How far do you think their influence went? And do you think they could have helped build some of the classic structures we all know and love?